Yo, welcome to the stream. Let me just wait 1 second to confirm that it's going. Alright, looks good. So, today we'll talk about escaping narcissistic abuse in the Midwest, financial control, trauma bonds, and consensus reality. So it'll be a mixed bag of topics possibly related to, unscripted, escaping financial control and Midwestern social dynamics, perceptions of the people existing without perceptions of the people existing without a clique, and smear campaigns, the passive temperament of the people makes it easy for narcissists to exploit trust and create flying monkeys. And thanks for your patience as I create new habits to support this work. So in the last stream, I showed narcabuse411.wordpress.com, and I'm going to attempt to post daily links there every day except Saturday. Saturday broke my habit this week, so I'll go ahead and resume that. It'll probably be like the first post where I posted the last several days, because I still capture them every day. I just don't put them together into a post, even though it only took like 10 minutes for each of the posts. Just after Saturday into Sunday, that's sort of my planning day, and then Monday I was doing a bunch of personal admin stuff, and now we're into Tuesday. So yeah, I got a good nature walk in today, so that's sort of like a once every week or 2 weeks thing. For a while it was like months between having it, so it's nice to keep that in the routine, even though I can't really afford it, like because of groceries and whatnot. Everything I do cuts into my grocery money, but on the other hand, I can't just live and eat rice and beans and never leave the suburban property every single day. And like at some point, it's like I can't run out of hope before I run out of water, in a sense. So even though I don't have the money, I still just invest it, as in like, well, if I starve to death, I'll regret not having done this. So, it's that kind of thing. So you can tell where the financial control aspect comes into this. So yeah, as I mentioned, I had a workplace violence restraining order that hit me on April 20th of 2020, which we all know what was going on in the world right then. Like, the mask mandates were just coming online, and there was circumstances around the court, like just confusion about which county it was filed in. It turned out to be one that was like 40 miles away, and I had like $20 to my name. Like, the exact amounts and everything are journaled. That's part of the homeless data project and doing business while homeless. Don't want to get too caught up on the exact numbers, and I can't, because the truth is journaled, there's no sense holding on to it in my brain, but it was somewhere around like $20 to $40. Anyway, so yeah, I've been interested in the idea of financial control for a while. Before pandemic, it wasn't really a thing because I was working normally, and yeah, I had to quit a couple jobs, but that's the normal thing in the service industry. It's like you work a job for a season and you move on to another job. And I had better paying jobs like landscaping during the spring, summer, and fall, and then during the winter, it gets a little bit hungry there. And I didn't always have something lined up for winter, but by the second to third year, I was starting to figure out the routine. Coming out of working as a programmer for 20 years, you just get used to having one job, going to the office year round, having a job for a few years, having a few months of fun employment in between, and then moving on to the next job. Always plenty of savings. Never, always people emailing you, checking in, seeing, oh, this is interesting. What do you think about this or that? So financial control was never a thing in my life. I applied to a job the day I was 14, and it was in the Midwest. And like the thing is with like service jobs especially, you not always, I got my service jobs without knowing somebody at the place, but typically you have a friend who works there, they put in a good word for you. It doesn't get you hired, but it gets you the interview, and you know, it's the interview basically becomes a formality, the resume becomes a formality. But I got a lot of both software jobs and service jobs on the West Coast by just dropping in my application and, getting it on my own merit, right? So in the Midwest, it's interesting. Like, there's a lot more, maybe there's probably a higher concentration of townies, less transplants. I can't say there's a higher amount of townies because just the population is higher in West Coast cities. So there are a ton of townies. It is cliquey and everything there. But also the culture has a lot more transplants, I would say. And so, anyway, so as of last week, as the person who, went on there's always people watching me on these social media channels, and it seems like they chime in at the perfect moments when I'm having, like, important videos and whatnot. But anyway, that's just sort of how this, like, townie thing works. It's like they don't have anything better going on, and so, it's not to say they have nothing going on. It's just, like, they've got a very, their life is pretty fixed, and, more power to them. That's great. Let me pull it back. So, right, so they bust onto my stream. So, on the last stream I mentioned this picture, and I found it for this stream. And it's really tiny for whatever reason. So, basically, this is you. This is the people who gossip. And this is all of, you go to like a 4th of July party, all these people are here as well as these two. You go to a Christmas party, all these people are here, including these two. But then, these are the people who sort of keep in touch with you. They're maybe your closest friend of the group. And when they decide that they don't like you, they get everyone else to not like you. And so this is where the sort of towny, cliquey thing comes from, and where the narcissist and consensus reality and high trust and sort of like passive temperament thing comes in. Because it's like if you've got a towny social environment, like, partially because of economic conditions, like there's kind of a moat. Another drawing I did a long time ago was sort of like a heat map of if you're a homeless person, how expensive is it to get to different places by transit? Maybe you have to go through like 2 or 3 transit companies. Like in the Bay Area, you've got BART at least, but you still might have to pay fares several times. So if you start getting to like the, $10 or $15 of gas, or like $15 to $30 worth of transit, it might be Caltrain, there might be peak hours, there might be, express buses that you need to take to get a connection, or to just be on it for 20 minutes instead of an hour and a half or whatever. Like the N line from the Outer Sunset into the financial district, there's an express version that's like 20 or 30 minutes versus the train that can be an hour and a half at times. So financial control is a big thing, and I've done streams in this series. I think this is Escaping Domestic Abuse playlist, where it's like how much money you have determines what your options are, right? So it's like, oh, just all this talking, get your feet on the ground, whatever. You didn't have a rainy day fund, whatever. These people want to bust into my comment sections and chats and things and say stuff like this. So they're like sitting there watching me, but like nobody's helping me. Well, it's like, oh, I had to do a hard thing by myself, so you have to do a hard thing by yourself too. So many just, I need, see how I'm like all over the place, but it's all sort of related. It's like when I go for my walks, when I'm like, got my morning and evening meditation sessions, this and that. So, yeah, so like a week ago, the restraining order ended, which kept me effectively out of work for 3 years, possibly 5 to 10 years because of the background checks. So, okay, why am I not boots on the ground now? Well, like I spent some time trying to figure out how I can get a free phone number. Because, okay, if even going on nature walks are cutting into my grocery budget, I haven't had phone service since last June, so that's like 11 months without a phone, right? I activated it for a month in January and made like no calls. It's just like I emailed people to try to get calls set up, but the people didn't email me back. And so it's like, be a little bit more persistent, call them. I know. It's like when you send like the last 2 emails, it's just like the thing with my buddy who is like, oh, you didn't, he texted me, said he had a couple possible job opportunities for me, but I didn't have phone service at the time. So I think he was just like watching me for social media on months. And then when I made a post the first day I got into a hotel room, got my first shower in a year, he posted onto that picture in the comment sections and was like, oh, you're choosing to be homeless. I offered you this and that, and, I texted you this and that, and you blah, blah, blah. Tried to resolve it with him on text, ghosted. So it's like lifelong friend gone. So, not saying he's necessarily a narcissist, but he's definitely lacking empathy, which is what a narcissistic person is like. It's like he texted me one time, I didn't have service. No more texts, no more calls. Possibly, I got some tricky emails. I got some tricky, like, fake recruiter stuff. I'm thinking it might have been, just the energy felt like him or, his ilk were behind it. But, I can't prove it. And I just responded in the exact way as I would if a recruiter approached me that, amateurish and unprofessionally, which is just no response, right? So it's like, I'm guessing, it's just like energetically, like, I don't know if it's part of a smear campaign. It's just like the things feel connected to me, right? But it's just like, so these people, once they decide that they don't like you, they might start testing you. It's just like the townie social protocols are just extremely, I've used the term like ham-fisted before. I don't know where that came from. I'm sure it came from somewhere. But it's just like, sort of like knuckle draggery. Like, if you test somebody and they're sensitive, they can feel the energy of it. And this isn't just like being weird and woo-woo. This is like literally how stuff works, like the consensus reality thing. So how are those two connected? So it's like an idea that I had a while back that came back up again today on my walk was like, so picture reality as like a system of equations, a matrix, and it's like every person, every choice that's been made, and everyone's vote on that choice. So it's like even just 1, 0, -1. Like, I agree with this choice is 1, I disagree with this choice is -1, and I have not encountered this decision, I have no opinion, is 0. So it's like every person has this vector, so then all the people with all the decisions, cross product, a vector of people, a vector of decisions per person, put it together, it turns into a big matrix. So you could add the idea of strongly positive, strongly negative, where it goes, the scale, one-dimensional is just, 1 minus 1. It's just the sign, plus, minus, and then 0 means I don't know. So if you wanted to add, intensity, you could even add, a decay for recency, or... it's, I don't want to get too complicated out in the weeds, but it's just that's the idea of consensus reality, right? So then, I'm trying to, because, as I'm doing work, I'll put a podcast on in the background, and it's these kind of repeatedly touch on ideas. So that's what's going into the Narc Abuse 411 vlog. Let's see where we're at on time, too. I'll try to keep this one relatively shorter. So consensus reality. Some people will figure out... Man, I know I'm all over the place. So it's why aren't my feet just on the ground getting a job? Well, no phone service, right? So I spent a while trying to figure out phone service. And then it's I caught up on some admin tasks I needed to catch up on. And it's once I do that, then my confidence gets really low, because it's just my natural aptitude, my calling is as a programmer, as a researcher, as a educator, as a teacher of some sort. So it's as I don't do those activities for a while, my confidence drops. So it's combination of couldn't find phone service, confidence dropping. Okay, today I went to a coffee shop, did some work, just boosted myself up, went on a nature walk, just got out of the funk. Okay, now I can again try to find some phone service. I think it'll be okay to leave the address off of a job application, even though it doesn't even feel like that's what I should be doing. I can do it, the restraining order is cleared. Going through an interview and saying that my old boss has an active restraining order against me was just non-starter, I perceive things as more cliquey in the Midwest, so it's I've recorded a podcast on this in the past that I haven't published. Just there's people that I know, but they won't refer me to any opportunities. It's they think, okay, I'm a West Coaster, I'm going to embarrass them, I'm not hardworking enough. I've addressed this in a podcast in the past as well, which is I think blue collar people on the West Coast work a lot harder than blue collar people in the Midwest, because they have to. Because what's everyone like to talk about? The cost of living. But there they'll say, oh, well, they get paid more per hour. Well, right? You get paid more per hour. The cost of living is higher. So it should balance out, right? But then add in the lower trust, the more cutthroat nature of people. So many more first-generation immigrants there. There's a ton of first-generation immigrants, too, here in the Midwest, all over the place. And, they sort of fall into their ethnic communities, which, more power to them. That's totally fine. That's actually how certain ethnic groups get extremely wealthy. It's if you have an in-group of people, the way you get wealthy is to pay each other for services. Say one group of people, someone in that group of people gets $1. They spend it at one business by the same group of people, who spends it at another business by the same group of people, who then spends it at a business of some other group of people who is more inclusive. So that's 2 or 3 changing of hands per dollar in that in-group before it leaves the group, right? So there's even like a good benefit to having in-groups and doing business with each other and being skeptical of outsiders and, you know, this and that, right? So it's like, how do you go from being an outsider to an insider? Well, you sort of have to be like hazed in. And it's like, if there's just a really like low EQ, emotional intelligence method of hazing you in, which is to like lie about you, bully you, you know, get you to bend over, because there's not many other. The thing is, like, the fewer options there are, the more like knuckle dragging the social protocol will be. Like out west, people just don't care about you, and so because there's just so many options, everything's constantly moving. It's like a raging ocean of people, right? But like in the Midwest, there's like there's less movement. It's more stagnant. It's like literally ocean on the coast versus lake in the Midwest, right? Lakes are just the same water, just sitting there, sitting there, sitting there. You keep like peeing in the lake, and eventually you'll catch a fish out of it. But like in the ocean, and you know, I'm just totally making this up. Like, it just means like the water in the lake, it's like it just stays there. You know, maybe new water comes in when it rains, maybe some water evaporates out, but it's like day to day, 98% of the water is the same. But like a stream or an ocean or whatever, the water's always moving. So it's like fish in a lake are gonna see the same fish every single day. They might even like remember the fish. They might, you know, have ongoing feuds with different fishes. But in the ocean, nobody's got time to have feuds, right? It's like there's an ever changing set of fish. So it's like you might never see the same fish twice. So it's like you're not gonna have feuds. Your approach to fish is gonna be different. You might be more cutthroat. You might be more willing to throw them under the bus because you'll never see them again. There's no like social cost to being evil. So it's like, you know, which do you prefer? You know, there's no way to say one is better or worse. But for me, the West Coast way is much, much better. So it's like this sort of like this smear campaign thing. It's not really going to happen as much on the West Coast. Like, it can happen at an industry-wide level. That'll happen through the whisper networks and through the courts. Like, whisper networks you can get around. The courts are, you know, that sort of follows you everywhere, whatever system you're in. And, you know, unfortunately I got bit by the court level of it because I was calling out the whisper level of it, because, you know, it's like, basically it was my first big corporate job, and if I wouldn't have rocked the boat, I wouldn't have got fired. But because I rocked the boat, you know, for reasons I explained 1 or 2 streams back, you know, it's just, so I come from a Midwestern sort of approach where I have to have foresight, I have to like, you know, think steps ahead. I have to think people will remember me. Where that, you know, it's like as you go up the pyramid of power in the corporate world, things get more like the Midwest in a way. But like outside of the pyramid, there's like a raging ocean. So it's like, so if it seems like I'm contradicting myself, you may be picking up on some truth. It's just there's more context to it that, you know, it's like this is where it would really help to have people to talk with. Like, I'm just literally alone all the time. Like I said, no phone. So it's like getting into the service industry, it's as I described, you know, the ocean, the fish constantly moving. As you get, well, also too, it's not even just, there might be, you know, corporate jobs like that on the West Coast in general too, but I was getting into like borderline elite level tech, you know, Silicon Valley, San Francisco ad tech. And that's, the world mecca. Everywhere wants to be the next Silicon Valley, but like the numbers show that pretty much nowhere is near the next Silicon Valley yet. In terms of investment dollars, in terms of number of people employed, actually, I briefly left Silicon Valley to go to Denver, which, along with Seattle, is basically, still top tier, but like number 2. As far as, just size of the industry. But the power's still all concentrated. The big moves are still being made effectively in the Bay Area. Now, how that's changing post-pandemic, one can argue. And I'm not really familiar with it because I'm clearly out of that. That's not my level anymore. So it's like now I'm out of that, so I'm sort of like, and it's not gloating, it's not exaggerating to say, basically a basketball player from the NBA, kicked out of the NBA, has to go to a lower level league. Now, if basketball is his calling and whatnot, he will do it, and he won't complain, and it'll be fine. And, like, that's where I am. But, depending why you got kicked out of the NBA and how long went by, like, if a couple years of off-seasons and not practicing and stuff went by, you're going to have to do something to get back in shape, even to go to the Tier 2 league. And so that's where I am with software development. It's sort of like I've been up with the elite level. I've been out for a couple seasons as I worked in service, labor, this and that. And then, to change locations during pandemic because like the gyms were shut down because I was running out of financial constraint, getting financially constrained. And then to sort of have, posting the stuff on social media, people watching me, seeing that I'm going to get weak. It's getting embarrassing probably to people. So if I were to go to some Midwestern town where I knew people, they're going to, they know that as soon as I get back in the groove, I'm going to be making a ton more money than them. Which means, like, if it's a sort of status game, consensus reality sort of game, it's like once I'm making more money, I have more sway in the social group. And, I'm not saying that is the best way for things to be, but that is the way it is basically wherever you are. Like, the more, money, status, power you have in a group, it's going to vary by group. Like, academic groups will be different, but and force might be another one, contrary to power. But, there's going to be a different balance in different groups wherever you go. So it's like the number one thing I need right now is phone service. I think I can get by applying to jobs without an address, despite all the friction, despite all the, the barriers to doing it, despite feeling like it's not the right thing for me to be doing. I have been doing it, like I was doing it out in the Bay Area where it's like, okay, it's not New York. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. But still, I think it's a tier 1 sort of place where if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. So clearly I can make it here. Given the constraint is lifted on the 20th or 21st. I think the 21st was the first day I was free and clear. It's now the 2nd. I've had to do like personal admin stuff. I've had to like keep my confidence up. I've had to try to find phone service. My habits with eating are having to change because I'm just getting down to like the very, very, very bottom of the money that I have. I think I bought my last couple gallons of water. I can maybe scrape up a little bit more change. I put my change in a jar. I might have 1 or 2 more bottles of water. I think I'm overdrawn in my bank account now because there's like a $7 a month membership fee, and I have had no money in there for a couple months, so it'll probably be like $14. That's if they don't decide to charge surprise overdraft. Not surprise in that case, but I got a surprise overdraft fee a few months back, which knocked me down $40, right? So it's like if there's like one or two more overdraft fees on the membership fees, then I'm down like 40 or 80 more bucks. Which means even if I find a way to get somebody to Venmo me $50, it might all just be going to overdraft fees. I haven't even checked the balance. So it's like, 'cause I'm just thinking like if I get some cash, I'll get a prepaid credit card, which is like $5 off the top, but at least then I can buy some phone service. It's like $60 for phone service, so I've got to find like $75 in cash to get a month of phone service. Just find a cheaper one. Hopefully it'll work with my phone, which is also busted. I did set up my LTE router, which, you know, if there's a whitelist of phones, my broken phone is an iPhone SE1, and I think I can replace the battery. My Amazon Prime membership is expired, otherwise the battery's like $15. So it's like blah blah blah. So it's like I need $150 just to get going back with my old iPhone. And that's, you know, doing the work of repairing the phone myself. It's gonna take a few more days just, you know, to get the battery shipped to me without Prime. Oh my goodness, right? So it's like this is where the financial control aspect comes in. It's like all this talk and just feet to the ground, right? Well, find a job you can apply to with no phone, no references, voluntarily saying no address. You know, I think I can use general delivery at a post office, but like the nearest one is, you know, deep in like a rung 3 suburb, which is like tons of money and hours by transit to go pick up that mail, right? Just use my relative's address? Absolutely not. I don't want my relative to know where I'm working. And just because I think he's the type of person who would actually reach out to an employer just to try to get more control over me. It's like once they're narcissistic and once they have no accountability, their behavior gets worse and worse and worse. And they'll do everything that they can get away with without accountability to A, have control of you, and B, get satisfaction from sadism, which is actually just waking up and torturing you. So it's like the number one reason I need to not talk about specifics of what's happening to me on this account anymore. It's like, it's the feedback loop in the last couple streams that I mentioned, which is like, they torture me, I don't give them any reaction in person, but then I talk about it on social media, and boom, there's the feedback loop. So it's like, what do I talk about on social media? They'll keep doing more of it, keep doing more of it, keep doing more of it. And it's like, you know, I've asked all of my relatives who I was, you know, talking with still a couple years ago to, you know, basically they don't want to, nobody has given me a reason, but everybody has denied being accountability buddies or doing not arbitration, but mediation. Which fine, I'll, you know, respect to them. They are allegedly Christian, and that's the Christian way of approaching things, is to request a neutral third party be a mediator. So there's like being in honor, being belligerent. So it's like what the smear campaign will do is try to set it up to make me look like I'm doing all kinds of bad things. I'm the parasite. I'm everything that I'm being accused of. You know, I'm not in honor. I'm being belligerent, you know, refusing to communicate. It's like the difference between a silent treatment or a stonewall and a gray rock, which is self-defense. You know, the difference between, so, you know, if someone abuses you, they use violence, and you use violence back, you know. yes, it is wrong to use violence back, but one side has power, therefore one side is abusing the other side who's defending themselves or snapping or defending themselves. Reactive abuse is they're still in honor even though they use violence. Usually you should retreat as far as possible, but once you can't retreat anymore, there's, even in duty to retreat jurisdictions, there is self-defense. Perfect self-defense means you are literally cornered, your life was literally in danger. Literally cornered, your life is literally in danger. And then there's imperfect self-defense, which means you were definitely cornered, but your life wasn't in immediate danger. So it's like I've talked about a situation with my cousin, like putting me up against, pinning me up against a car, like, and I was like, stop trying to hug me, stop trying to hug me, stop trying to hug me. It was like right when I left took refuge in the Midwest from the West Coast, saw my relatives. So it's like, what was this doing? This was purposely provoking me. And so I said, get away from me, I don't want to hug you, And I was like 10, 9, 8, 7, and I just pushed him away by the hips. Violence, right? Imperfect self-defense because my life wasn't literally in danger. However, this was during pandemic. I didn't know anybody's poke status either way. So it's like, during the pandemic specifically, I could argue that it was perfect self-defense because I didn't want to touch him. But yes, by pushing him away, I did choose to touch him, right? So it's like how long was he going to just sit there doing this? And then it's like my relatives said, oh, it's too bad it was all just over a hug. Oh. So that's the sort of like, what? Like, people don't want to see, like, what the actual situation was. Like, I was literally being provoked. I didn't have to push him away. I didn't have to use violence. But it's like, that's the sort of like, no accountability. Being, if you don't do something, they're just going to be as, that's like the first day we're seeing each other. The first day we saw each other, he was drunk. He was like sitting on my lap and all this stuff. And I was just like, weird, but okay. And the second day, he was like coming at me, like trying to hug me. And I'm like, I just don't want to hug. Like, respect, no. And then I'm like, how many, and then, after I pushed him away, he's like, they always do that. I'm like, okay, so this is, you knew who's they. They always what? When you do what? So it's like you sit there doing, this for like seconds, get the countdown, like get away from me. They always do that. Well, as far as the rest of the family, all of, not family anymore. Family is spirit, relatives are blood. The rest of these people now see, oh, Harlan's crazy and violent, and when you try to hug him, he'll literally push you away. They don't hear the whole rest of the story. And it's like, so it's like that's now the consensus. Like, Harlan's this crazy violent. I've been invited to no family functions. Like, nobody has told me this stuff and whatever. But, like, they're getting in my DMs like, oh, there is no smear campaign. There is no, oh, you're just, you need, well, stop, you're just full of hate, like, over text message. So it's like, that there's some consensus among these people that's all influenced by probably the relative that I'm staying with, especially, who sees me day to day. It's like, I'm getting on here talking about the relatives, so it's like they see a bit, oh yeah, he's right, so it's like this guy knows what I'm going to do. He's like, oh, I just can't take it, and oh, that's why I'm exploding with rage every night. It's just, oh, Harlan's running a smear campaign on me, right? But it's like, meanwhile, let's look at the actual facts. Well, there is none of that, just like in the case with my cousin. It's like, let's take one violent reaction. I mean, I don't even need to quote, it is, pushing him away. But it's using its proportional response. You're sitting there in my personal space, have me cornered. It's literally perfect self-defense, to push you away. Like, I didn't use excessive force. I literally just pushed him away and said, I gave him plenty of warning. No, 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 no. Get out of my space. No, no, no. So it's like, okay, since the family sees me as violent, let's look at the temperament of this person. Okay? I wish them all the best, but allegedly he raped his sisters. Is that the type of person, who's doing this and being all rapey to me, is going to get, I've treated him with way too much compassion, It's as if the thing never happened, blah, blah, blah. It's like a church, cover up family secrets, blah, 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 right? First time I ever saw my sperm donor cry was when he learned through that cousin's dad/sperm donor that he raped his sisters, allegedly. I don't know that it's true, but the first time I ever saw my sperm donor cry was when that came up at a family gathering. Boom. Okay? So, we're Christian. We're a Christian family. All darkness comes to light. These people in the yellow are reprobates. We may know them as narcissists in today's clinical psychology. See, this is where they get furious with me. They're like, we gotta get this, we gotta do something about this guy. He's going crazy. He's going crazy. Look at how he's acting on the stream. Oh my gosh, asylum, oh! Right? There's such a thing as a reasonable, it's just, I'm literally financially controlled in a cliquey environment with someone who is quoted as literally saying, I don't want to know what you do all day. And it's just, as well as like old friends who are like, making stuff up and throwing it onto my Instagram posts, not responding to my emails. This isn't me lashing out at anyone. This isn't me going excessively crazy. This is just like, here I am. I'm controlled. I'm in a lake where there's not a lot of movement, Okay, go apply to jobs without a phone number anyway. There's like, there's definitely a finite number of places that I can walk in, drop in a job application within walking distance. Now we get further than walking distance, we start talking about $5 a day for bus fare until the first paycheck, 2 or 3 weeks, right? So it's like first impression is worth about 40 subsequent impressions. So it's like, if I go in to apply, I don't have a haircut, I have crappy clothes, I don't have a phone number, the chances that they're going to want to deal with me are so small. It's like, I get followed around to the self-checkout aisle at the grocery store because people, see me not every day. And, it's a variable that I figured out all the way on the West Coast as I was like getting more and more dirt poor. It's like, as I look more and more greasy, I get more and more negative attention. Perfect correlation, and I would say definite causation. Because I've been way up and down the economic spectrum throughout my life, and it's like, I know how to groom myself well, I know how to present myself well, And I know that when I'm in situations where I cannot do those things because of finances or resource limitations or not having options in various ways, being with people who are not accountable, who feel they can treat me like garbage, who get away with treating me like garbage time after time, it's like I see the variables change. I'm a really talented, pattern recognizing person. I've made it very, very far. I've made it to the elite level of my career. You know, I've been in like the top 5% income earners. Like, you know, it's like I'm not just going crazy and making a bunch of stuff up. You know, I'm doing a lot of homework, which, you should just get your feet on the ground and just walk. There's like, call it 15 places I can walk. And if I go walk into all these places, make the best first impression that I can, and it's really crappy, not because I'm a crappy person, but just because I don't have the things I need to make a good first impression. 15 places tried, one of them will hire you. If the expected chance of success at each one is 100 divided by 15, which is like 6% or something. There's like, so each place uses 6% of my option. If my chance, if you go in without a phone number, without an address, looking crappy, no references, so many things are counting against you. It's like if each one cuts your chances in half, so, no phone number, 50%. No references, 25%. Looking crappy, 12.5%. Fourth factor, 6.25%. So we're now at, we're expecting to need to apply at 15 places, everything else going perfectly. Well, you just said 15, and the chances are, just a little bit greater. Therefore, if you do it, it'll happen. I don't know that there's 15. But I think we have to get the chances of success a little bit higher than 6% at a entry-level job in walking distance. I think we need to get me a phone number. I think we need to get me, I can make it work with my clothes some days. I could probably use, I could make that work. Well, now you're at 12%, so feet on the ground, buddy. Not having a phone number is a huge thing. So how can I work around that? I can say, okay, well, I'll come back in a day or two. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at all the applications and we can schedule something, or we can schedule something now, even though you haven't looked at it yet. And I'll come at that time, and if you've looked at it and it doesn't look good, then, too bad. Okay, we'll see you've thought of it, so go do it, buddy. It's, if it comes down to where I have no other options but to do that, okay, fine. I've thought it through. It's been a little over a week and a half since I've been able to get a job. If it comes down to doing that, fine. It's like, it took time to try my options. It took time to get my confidence built back up after doing that. I mean, we're talking, it's been a week and a half. Like, it's not been like I've been sitting here, if I go in, okay, so say a fifth thing is, former boss has an active restraining order. That's not just cutting chances in half. Say every yellow flag cuts chances in half, every red flag destroys the chance, right? So this is like a level slightly beyond what most financially controlled people do. But it's not the only level beyond. Like, say you're a housewife. You've got to do the housewife duties or you're going to get physically beat up. And so you can't, like, the only way to get a job is to do it without your husband knowing. Save money because he gives you a small allowance. He checks the receipts, right? So the only way to get money is to work without him knowing. So that's going to be like under the table payment at times when he's gone, where it's not cutting into your homework, your home duties that he'll notice are not being done, right? Now, not even to mention cell phone tracking and Ring cameras in the last decade. It's like, if you're a housewife in that situation, I don't even know how to get around the camera thing. It's just like you're literally a slave. Like, the thing is, you've got to find somebody who cares enough, who isn't more aligned with the money, power, status, whatever of the abuser, who's usually, they usually have a public persona that's very, like, involved in the community, in positions of leadership, going above and beyond. So tons of people think, oh, what a great person. Oh, you're so lucky that he's your dad. There's a community of 890,000, I think, at last check, of people who are dealing with this kind of stuff. So it's like, my restraining order situation was not the only situation that would prevent somebody from getting a job. It could just be you're the spouse of someone who wants to keep you under control. So it's like, okay, the restraining order is done. So, that's red flag. That's not just cutting chances in half each time. Say 3 yellow flags, your chances are down to 12.5%. That's still like a little more than 10%, still workable, do it 10 times, you got it, whatever. So that's almost like completely logical thinking about, you've got 1, 2, how many yellow flags will they take on an application? 2, 3, So that just about perfectly lines up. 4, probably not. That's like 6.5% chance, 6, and a quarter, whatever percent chance it'll work out. So a red flag, that's like, even with the worker shortage, even like, this is like existential threat to the business. This is like the insurance won't cover it level threat. Workplace violence on the background check, like, no matter how much we need you, we need the business without you more. That's a red flag level thing. So for me, it happens to be, okay, I've got my red flag level thing, but for like a housewife, she doesn't have a red flag as far as background check goes, but she's just got an impossible time constraint with the controlling partner, right? Can we even call it the controlling captor, slave owner, right? So it's like, I wouldn't have been in the position where I needed to come back if it weren't for that restraining order. But I was, so it's sort of like, it was, my relationship with my relatives before was, between 1, 0, and -1. It was, 0, maybe like 0.1 if we're getting into a spectrum, I liked them. I was generally warm to them. I thought they were a little bit weird with their religion stuff, but, whatever. Good people. Religion equals good people, right? So it's like, does anyone else want to let me stay with them other than alcoholics? No, I've got to stay with an alcoholic. Like, I've personally had a boundary that I drew years ago, basically with the open table thing. 2016 was the last time I would work for an alcoholic. And the boss after that was not an alcoholic, which was awesome. And the boss after that, I don't think was an alcoholic, but definitely drank, But that was a really weird situation. My last tech job was like super weird. And I actually, like, I don't want to file lawsuits against these people, right? I just want people held accountable. So it's like, because like, I just don't want to go through the law. Oh, that means you just don't have a claim with merit. No, it just means I don't want to do law. Like, I want accountability out of people. That's like the whole thing with this homeless data project, is like finding accountability. It's so, accountability is extremely expensive, even though people will say, oh, homeless people just need to take accountability. Well, no matter how hard I look for accountability, that is so expensive. So a lot of my tech work, open source. And I'm trying to make products to support the work. I'm trying to ask for donations to support the work. It's just like literally my calling. Like when I got onto this thread back in 2018, it was like I made why iSpooge now and number 2, which is like a little bit more elaboration. Just the same format, like, you know, algorithmic bullying and being low status, but like finding great opportunity and like, you know, it's like I found my own way out without forcing people around me to be accountable. You know, my lakes of people. I found new lakes and they were great. And then I went out to the ocean and then people, you know, peed in the lake figuratively, which is maybe spreading, you know, might have been people who are envious, jealous, whatever. In the past, see an opportunity where I'm weak, where they can misconstrue things with people. Healthy people don't want to get involved with drama. Awesome. This is drama. People don't want to get involved with this. So, like, this is, like, second yellow flag. It's like someone gossips about me, yellow flag 1. Probably not a red flag, but then they see me doing this, yellow flag 2. How many yellow flags, you know, are accepted? You know, maybe 2, 3, so it's like I might already be on my second, third yellow flag. And the fact that I'm doing this is kind of yellow flag. So it's like I'm trying to make it less autobiographical, but, you know, through the Narc Abuse 411 channel, that'll be completely non-autobiographical. This is still my alt-personal channel. So I'm still, you know, hopefully this is still going. Yeah, gosh, we're going on an hour again? Good lord, you guys. Alright, so I'll end it before an hour mark. The last one's like an hour and some seconds, 17 or so. But, yeah, how much of this topic did I cover? So, escaping narcissistic abuse in the Midwest, I think I pretty much stayed there. Financial control, I talked a lot about that. The social dynamics, I brought up the old, not old, but, you know, the post that I made in November. I talked about that in some streams back around that time. You know, thank you for your patience as I establish the new habits. What I want to do is probably go back and update those descriptions with A, related videos, and B, you know, generalize stuff onto Narc Abuse 411 and then link to that. So yeah, of this topic, you know, perceptions of people existing without a clique, smear campaigns, passive temperaments, easy for narcissists to exploit, trust, and create flying monkeys. So rather than passive temperament, I think I went more into like the lake versus ocean analogy. Lakes are a lot more calm. Oceans are a lot more wild in a sense. So that's kind of what I was mentally thinking with passive. Like, not that the people are all passive, although I think that is also true. You know, it's like sort of so within, so without. Like, there's going to be a lot of like, or so above, so below sort of analogies, right? So, you know, in my perception, I stayed pretty much on topic. Like, these are unscripted, one take, no fake, blah, blah, blah. So I do have comments open, although they are moderated, which is a change, which I made, you know, closer to the new year. I might open it up on old videos, you know. Something that a content manager does is go back and, like, you know, keep stuff up to date, cross-link stuff, you know, figure out how to repurpose stuff. So I've got like 400 videos that I can do a lot of that repurposing, you know, clipping, putting on other channels, making an essay or an article that links to these things, re-summarizing these things and doing the article in video format. So it's like I've got a ton of raw content to work with, which is super. It's just now I've got to go from, you know, analogous, so last minute. So it's like in writing, you have the writing side of things and the editing side of things. So like Hemingway said, write drunk, edit sober. You know, all of these things have been made, you know, not drinking or anything. But so it's like I've gotten through the writing aspect, and then a lot of writers will say, you know, put it into a drawer for 6 months, come back and edit it. So that's, you know, produce video, write articles, blah, 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 blah. So going on and on, I already sort of summarized it. So definitely, if you don't like the autobiographical stuff, go to the blog narcabuse411.wordpress.com. And yeah, thanks for joining, and hopefully these habits smooth out soon. Bye.